everybody. I am back. This is once again Empowering Democracy, and I'm your host, Joe Firestone. In this stream, I want to talk about a Lancet study which addressed a very important question. The question was, given the inaction we see in getting rid of fossil fuels and trying to meet the climate emergency, is it still possible for us to have a healthy human future? Well, this article from Common Dreams and a new study by Lancet, which is one of the premier medical journals in the world, gives a positive answer to that question. In this Common Dreams article, showing people in India walking through a very, very polluted environment, heavy smog in New Delhi on November 8th, 2017. The headline is Healthy Human Future Still Possible If World Ditches Fossil Fuels, Lancet study. The article was by Kenny Stansel. It was written on October 26, 2022. Hang on a second. Kenny Stansel says, while a continuation of the fossil fuel-dominated status quo threatens to, quote, lock in a fatally warmer future, policymakers can still secure a thriving future for humanity if they pursue a, quote, health-centered response that confronts the oil and gas industry responsible for shortening and endangering millions of lives around the globe. Quote, the climate crisis is killing us. That's according to a major report published Tuesday in The Lancet, leading source of peer-reviewed research, which states that the just transition to a healthy future can no longer be delayed. Since 2016, the Lancet Countdown, tracking processes on health and climate change, a collaborative effort to understand and alleviate the deadly impacts of the fossil fuel-driven climate emergency, has released an annual report in its namesake journal. Quote, this year's Lancet Countdown makes clear that fossil fuels are incompatible with a healthy future, said Dr. Jeannie Miller, Executive Director of the Global Climate and Health Alliance. Quote again, to prevent catastrophic global warming and the ensuing devastation that will be wreaked upon people around the world, the governments must commit to fully phasing out fossil fuels at COP27, Miller added, referring to the United Nations Climate Summit set to take place in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, from November 6 to 18. The report compiled by 99 experts from 51 institutions, including the World Health Organization and the World Meteorological Organization, examines the relationship between the climate crisis and public health across 5 domains and 43 indicators in 103 countries. In other words, it's a very major study. According to the Lancet Countdown, a persistent fossil fuel addiction is amplifying the health impacts of climate change and compounding the concurrent energy, cost of living, and COVID-19 crises we face. Governments and companies continue to prioritize fossil fuels above and to the detriment of people's health, jeopardizing a livable future. The world faces a critical juncture. A health-centered, aligned response to the compounding crises can still deliver a future where people can not only survive, but thrive. Researchers detail how unmitigated greenhouse gas pollution is throwing lives into chaos around the world. The increasing frequency and lethality of extreme weather disasters and the growing risk of infectious disease outbreaks on a rapidly warming planet, they note, show that public health has been put, quote, at the mercy, unquote, of fossil fuel interests. Key findings regarding the negative health impacts of the climate crisis include vulnerable populations, the elderly and children under 1 year of age, faced 3.7 billion more life-threatening heat wave days in 2021 than annually in 1986 to 2005, and heat-related deaths increased by 68% between 2004 and 2017 to 21. Human exposure to days of very high or extremely high fire danger increased in 61% of countries from 2001 to 2004 to 2018 to 2021. On average, 29% more global land area was affected by extreme drought for at least 1 month in a year in 2012 to 2021 than in 1951 to 1960. Climatic suitability for the transmission of dengue fever increased by 11.5% for Aedes aegypti and 12.0% for Aedes albopictus from 1951 to 60 to 2012 to 21, and the increasing frequency of heat waves resulted in an additional 98 million people reporting moderate to medium food insecurity in the 103 countries analyzed in 2020, compared with the 1981 to 2010 average. Despite these alarming statistics, the carbon intensity of the global energy system decreased by less than 1% since 1992, the year the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change was adopted, unquote, the Lancet Countdown finds. Meanwhile, energy-related carbon dioxide emissions hit a record high in 2021. Governments around the world continued to prop up the fossil fuel industry with hundreds of billions of dollars in public subsidies each year, sometimes exceeding their total health budgets, the report points out. Moreover, high-income countries have failed to follow through on their already modest commitments to finance a just transition. Quote, it doesn't have to be this way, unquote, the authors argue. Shifting towards sustainable energy, transportation, waste management, and agricultural systems could help prevent the 3.3 million deaths that are attributable to anthropogenic PM. Sorry, I'm not sure what the initial PM means in this instance. But in 2020, including the 1.2 million directly related to the combustion of fossil fuels, says the Lancet countdown. In addition to directly sorry, in addition to reducing premature mortality, a transition to renewable power sources would also improve energy access and grid reliability. Moreover, the adoption of low-carbon plant-rich diets could help prevent the 11.5 million deaths that were attributable to poor nutrition in 2019. In addition, quote, a green urban redesign could increase climate resilience while improving physical and mental health through healthier, more livable cities, unquote, the report notes. Quote, we see how climate change is driving severe health impacts all around the world, while the persistent global fossil fuel dependence compounds these health harms amidst multiple global crises, keeping households vulnerable to volatile fossil fuel markets and exposed to energy poverty and dangerous levels of air pollution. By Dr. Marina Romanello, executive director of the Lancet Countdown at the University College London, said in a statement. Quote again, despite the challenges, there is clear evidence that immediate action could still save the lives of millions with a rapid shift to clean energy and energy efficiency. She said, quote again, accelerated climate action would deliver cascading benefits with more resilient health, food, and energy systems, unquote. Quote, with the world in turmoil, she added, quote again, governments and companies have the opportunity to put health at the center of an aligned response to these concurrent issues and deliver a healthy, safe future for all. The 7th annual Lancet Countdown report was published one day before the UN sounded the alarm about the world's dramatic failure to quickly implement transformative policies at the scale needed to avert the worst consequences of the climate emergency. Even if the 193 national parties to the Paris Agreement, which seeks to limit warming to a still dangerous 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, meet their current emissions reduction targets, the UN warned, global greenhouse gas pollution would increase 10.6% over 2010 levels by 2030, and average surface temperatures would rise by a devastating 2.1 to 2.9 degrees Celsius by century's end. Despite the glaring inadequacy of existing plans and investments, only about 24 countries have strengthened their pledges since last year's COP26 meeting in Glasgow, Scotland. The climate crisis is killing us, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said in a statement. Quote, it is undermining not just the health of our planet, but the health of people everywhere through toxic air pollution, diminishing food security, higher risks of infectious disease outbreaks, record extreme heat, drought, floods, and more, unquote. Gutierrez continued. Another recent report warned that in the absence of swift decarbonization, extreme heat is projected to kill as many people by the end of the century as all cancers and infectious diseases combined, with disproportionate impacts on people in impoverished nations. By mid-century, more than 2 billion children are projected to be at risk of suffering from frequent heat waves. Quote, human health, livelihoods, household budgets, and national economies are being pummeled as the fossil fuel addiction spirals out of control, said the UN chief. Quote again, the science is clear. Massive common sense investments in renewable energy and climate resilience will secure a healthier, safer life for people in every country. If we look ahead to COP27, Guterres added, quote, the world is watching and G20 countries, the source of 80% of global greenhouse gas pollution, must lead the way to a just, greener, and healthier future for all, unquote. And that ends the article. My question is, when will the populations of various countries respond to the type of scientific study we just got from Lancet? When will people take the results of these scientific studies seriously enough to take action? There's no doubt that the UN Secretary General is right. Our very existence as a species and the existence of many more species besides ourselves are currently at risk. They're at risk. They're at risk unless we act to save them. We have to change our habits. We have to lower our impact on the climate and on the environments. We have to get our carbon emissions under control, our greenhouse gas emissions under control. But we are not doing that. We are continuing to prioritize the profitability of our businesses over the health of our populations. We are engaging in a death march. That's what we're doing. We have to change that death march into a life march. That means changing our political systems. It means changing our policies. Because if we don't get the politics right, we won't get the changes right either. Our changes have to be directed by our policies. We have to rely on our leaders to help us to change things, rather than those leaders continuing to work against us. We have an election going on in the United States. Both parties are grabbing for power. Neither party seems interested in the climate emergency or doing anything about it. They mostly discuss issues that are false issues, faux issues. not real issues. They discuss certain issues about public financing that are based on completely erroneous assumptions that both sides are sharing. We continue to follow policies that are based on false understandings of the environment, false understandings of the climate, false understandings of the political system, false understandings of by one another, false understandings, okay, of other nations, okay, and their policies. The climate crisis is killing us, but so is our understanding of multiple crises that we face and how to meet these policies. We can call for change all day, and I will call for change. But we can't only ask our policymakers to change. We have to change ourselves. And the ways in which we have to change involve getting a better understanding of why we have a climate emergency, getting a better understanding of why we have emergencies of a political nature, and getting a better understanding of how we can act to change the situation. Technically, we in the United States still have a democracy, but we don't operate as a democracy. We operate as an oligarchy. But nevertheless, there are formal institutions that can disrupt the trend towards strengthening the oligarchy. There are things we can do to gain control, but we have to act together with the same understanding of what is wrong. Many of us share the belief that what is wrong is donor domination of the political system. And yet, we won't accept that to end donor domination of the political system, we have to make what the donors do toxic. What the donors do is give money to candidates they think will support their views and legislate in their favor. What they're doing with these candidates is transparent in the sense that we see the results. We see the big money flowing out, and we see people in Congress and the Senate and in other parts of the political and economic system doing exactly what the donors want in response to the money that is flowing to them. The only way to do anything about this is to use a litmus test to make that money toxic to the people that accept that money or that accept spending in their favor on behalf of the money that is flowing. How can we stop that? We must make it clear to the candidates who are getting that money that, or who are getting that support, that either accepting the support or taking the money will constitute a litmus test that people, the voters, will respond to. by voting against the candidates getting that money. If we have a movement large enough of people that do that, the result will be that most of the money benefiting candidates will be defeated, and new politicians will be voted into office who are not beholden to the money, and who will know that if they become beholden to the money, they will be defeated too. That's what we have to persuade all the politicians in the political system of. The certainty that if they take the money, they will be defeated sooner or later. If we do that, the people who stand for office will have to look elsewhere for their support. They will have to look to us, the voters, and what we want. And they will have to act on our behalf.
It will save lives.
Bonnie says it will save lives. Yes, it will save lives. But more importantly, it will save the future, because the voters realize, and will begin to realize more and more as the climate gets worse, that people who vote in the interest of the donors rather than in the interest of the climate must be defeated, must be turned out of office, and must be replaced by people who will respond to the climate needs of all of us. That is the only way to stop the climate crisis from killing us. We need the political system. We need the policies of the legislators to work in our favor for ending the climate emergency, and not to work in favor of people who simply want to profit and don't care about the impact they are having on the climate. So we can have these reports from scientists that absolutely make clear that we have to get rid of fossil fuels and that we have to do it now. But until we fix the political system, nothing will be done to get us there. So we have to focus there. We have to act as a collective. We have to make it poisonous for the candidates running for office to take that money. That has got to be job number one for us who engage in politics and who are in a position to make an impact on how things go. We have to organize as a collective, and we have to make that money toxic. Right now, that is the only thing that will save us. So, comments. Hey, Kay. Darren Fonzo had some comments. Democrats have waged war on American workers seeking our federal human rights. Yes, they have. So have Republicans. Darren says Section 801 of the Medicare for All bill excludes our injured workers leaving us and our issue behind. Please be clear, but Darren, which Medicare for All bill? Are we talking about H.R. 1976, or are we talking about something else? Also, what is the specific wording in that bill that you have in mind? Kay says, hi, Joe, and hi, Dolores, and Dolores greets Kay. And Kay says, yes, Joe. Thank you, Kay. Okay, so those are the comments we have. Okay, please do visit my Patreon accounts and my Buy Me a Coffee account. From time to time, I would greatly appreciate that. I will be back again once more. This evening, we will be talking about trends in the midterms of 2022. Okay, I will be here with Ezra Wilson. Certainly, there is also a possibility that Lisa will join us, according to what you said this morning, but there's also a possibility that she won't be able to make it, okay, as well. So I don't want to give a false impression, but there is a possibility. Okay, and Ezra has said that he will definitely be here. So he and I will be discussing the latest trends in the midterms of 2022. So I will see you then at 9 p.m. for another live stream. And don't forget, there are Friday live streams too. I'll be offering 3 live streams tomorrow, okay, as well. So thank you for coming, and I will see you later.